She thought the worst part of her night was being robbed, until the Mafia boss said she belonged to him. Ellie had never met Vincent Romano before, but when 3 thugs boxed her in behind the register, he defended her like her pain was personal. His men dragged the attackers outside. Her manager trembled. The whole store suddenly obeyed him. And when Vincent gently lifted her injured wrist, he did not ask if she needed help. He looked into her eyes and said words that should have terrified her but somehow felt like safety. "No one touches what's mine. Look at this opening shot. Welcome to Martin's Grocery," where the fluorescent lights buzz overhead, like they are one bad night away from dying. At the counter, 24-year-old Ellie Sanders is trying to survive the last stretch of a brutal double shift. It is almost midnight. Her fingers slide over the day's receipts. Nicked from paper cuts she is too tired to feel anymore. From the back room, her manager Mike calls out that there are only 20 minutes left. But 20 minutes can feel cruelly long when a 40-minute bus ride and an empty apartment are waiting. Ellie is far too young to be buried under her late father's medical bills. But life never asked if she was ready. Just as she reaches for the keys, the door chimes. Ellie goes still. She forgot to lock it. A small mistake. But at this hour, small mistakes can turn ugly fast. She tries to say they are closed, but the words dry up in her throat. The man who walks in does not belong in this tired little store. His charcoal suit looks expensive enough to make the cheap lights seem even crueler. His dark hair is perfectly styled. His posture calm. Almost too calm. But it is his eyes that unsettle her. Dark, sharp, and far too observant. They find her first. Then he turns down the cereal aisle like he has all the time in the world. There is something dangerous about him. The kind of danger you feel before your mind can name it. His sandalwood cologne still lingers in the air when the front door chimes again, snapping the moment apart. 3 men stroll in, laughing too loudly, moving like the store belongs to them. Heavy hoodies on a warm spring night. One has a neck tattoo. Another wears his cap sideways with a grin that makes Ellie's skin crawl. They smell of stale alcohol, cigarettes, and trouble. They demand beer as if Ellie is not a person, just part of the counter. She straightens her shoulders, though she is running on fumes. Ellie tells them the registers are closed and tries to keep her voice steady. But men like that can hear fear even when you swallow it. One of them leans over the counter with a smile that turns her stomach. He says a pretty girl like her should learn to be cooperative. Mike is still in the back with his headphones on, useless at the worst possible moment. The stranger in the suit has disappeared somewhere among the aisles. Ellie reaches for her phone, but a tattooed hand clamps around her wrist hard enough to make her gasp. The other 2 move behind the counter, cutting off her way out. The one in the cap demands cash, ignoring her when she says the drawer is empty. He twists her wrist until pain shoots up her arm. Ellie opens her mouth to scream, but a voice cuts through the store first. Smooth, quiet, terrifying. "I believe the lady asked you to leave." The men turn. The stranger in the suit stands at the end of the counter, both hands resting casually in his pockets. Under the harsh lights, his sharp jaw and cold eyes look almost unreal. The thugs came in looking for someone weak. Now they have found someone who makes them suddenly remember fear. The stranger gives off pure menace. But none of it is aimed at Ellie. His eyes flick to her trapped wrist, and something dark moves across his face. He tells them her safety is his business. It makes no sense. They have never met. Still he looks at her as if the men have made a mistake they will not get to undo. The tallest thug tries to laugh and reminds him it is 3 against 1. The suited man only smiles, cold and humorless. "I won't have to do a thing," he says, right on cue. The doors open, and 2 huge bodyguards step inside. The whole store seems to shrink around them. The 3 men release Ellie and start backing away, suddenly mumbling that they do not want trouble. But the man in the suit is not finished. His gaze lands on Ellie's wrist, where red marks are already swelling against her skin. Rage flashes across his face, brief but unmistakable. He gives his men a small nod. Take them outside, he says. Make sure they remember her face for the right reason. The bodyguards move fast, dragging the shouting men into the night. Then the stranger turns back to Ellie and lifts her bruised wrist with surprising gentleness. It's nothing, she whispers, because that is what Ellie always says when something hurts too much. It's not nothing, he answers, his thumb brushing the bruised skin. His voice lowers. No one touches what's mine. That sentence should send her running. It should terrify her. Instead, in that awful little store, it feels like a wall rising between her and the world. When she asks his name, his expression softens just enough to make him look human. Vincent, he says. Vincent Romano. The name hits like a slap. Everyone in the city knows the rumors. A mob boss. A man people fear for a reason. Yet he is the first person in years to look at Ellie as if her pain matters, giving him her name like a secret. He repeats it once, quietly, as if testing how it feels in his mouth. Then he tells her she has no business working late in a place like this. That is when Mike finally appears. Pale and sweating, he realizes who is standing in his store. Mr. Romano. He stammers, drowning himself in apologies. Vincent barely looks at him. His voice stays calm as he demands better security and makes it clear Ellie will never be left alone on a closing shift again. Ellie should be angry. She should tell him he has no right. But after years of being invisible, protection feels dangerously close to kindness. The silence after that feels thick enough to choke on. Ellie stands behind the counter, trying to make sense of what just happened. Why did Mike fold so quickly? Why would Vincent Romano care about a cashier with nothing to offer him? When he finally lets go of her wrist, the cold air rushes back and leaves a strange ache behind. He tells her his driver will take her home. It is phrased politely, but it is not really a question. Ellie clings to the only piece of control she has left. I can take the bus, she says. Vincent's jaw tightens. Not with anger, but with something that looks almost like fear. One of the guards returns and gives Vincent a small nod. It is done, he murmurs. Ellie does not ask what that means. She is afraid the answer will stay with her forever. Vincent looks back at her, his voice softer when he tells her to get her things. Her wrist throbs. Her knees feel weak, and the thought of standing alone at a dark bus stop suddenly seems unbearable. So she gives in. When she grabs her coat, Vincent is waiting by the exit. As she passes, his hand hovers near her back, not quite touching, but close enough for her to feel the heat of him. A sleek black sedan waits by the curb, its engine humming low like a sleeping animal. Ellie thinks Vincent is only sending her home. Then he slides into the back seat beside her. His leg brushes hers, and a jolt moves through her exhausted body. She gives the driver her address and braces herself for judgment when he hears the neighborhood. Vincent gives none. To break the silence, she asks how he knows Mike. Vincent smiles faintly and says he owns the building. The store only leases it through one of his companies. Ellie turns to the window, suddenly aware that powerful men can be woven into ordinary lives without anyone seeing the threads. Sitting in the back of that beautiful car, Ellie tries to match the man beside her with the stories whispered around the city. In person, he feels warmer than the rumors. But that only makes him harder to understand. What happened to those men? She asks quietly. Vincent studies her before answering. They were taught consequences. Her throat tightens. Were they hurt? His reply is simple and cold. They hurt you. A chill moves through her. When the car stops outside her worn apartment building, Ellie waits for him to pity it. He does not. He only looks at the cracked steps and dim windows, as if poverty is not strange to him at all. You can almost hear the audience telling Ellie to run. And honestly, who could blame her? Her hand reaches for the door handle like it is a lifeline. Vincent stops her with one touch and tells her to wait for the driver to walk her inside. It should feel controlling. It should make her snap at him. But then his voice cracks, just slightly, when he asks her to humor him. For 1 second, the polished danger slips, and she sees a man who has lost too much to leave safety to chance. Before the car leaves, he tells her he will see her again. Ellie stands on the sidewalk, knowing a promise from Vincent Romano is never just a promise. She leans against her apartment door and listens to the engine fade into the night. She tells herself she is safe now, but some part of her knows that is not true. Her quiet life has shifted, and there is no shifting it back. Vincent Romano did not simply save her. He stepped into her world and left his shadow behind. When she collapses onto her cheap couch, his words keep circling through her mind. No one touches what is mine. It should frighten her. It does frighten her. But for a girl who has spent years belonging nowhere, those words feel far too much like shelter. She lies awake until dawn, staring at the red marks on her wrist. Morning comes, and Ellie does what people do when reality becomes too much. She lies to herself. She tells herself Vincent was only a dangerous stranger who happened to help her. She pulls on her faded blue diner uniform, hoping the smell of coffee and fried eggs will drag her back into normal life. For a while, it almost works. The breakfast rush, the clatter of plates, the orders shouted from the kitchen, all of it keeps her moving. But Margot, the tired cook with sharp eyes and a soft heart, sees right through her. She says Ellie looks like someone who spent the night wrestling ghosts. Ellie nearly laughs, because that is closer to the truth than Margot knows. Margot keeps scolding her, saying she should be living her life instead of bleeding herself dry for scraps. Ellie almost tells her about the man in the suit, then thinks better of it. Just as the diner finally quiets down, the bell above the door rings. The room seems to pause. Vincent Romano steps inside in a tailored navy suit, looking like a wolf walking calmly into a room full of sheep. Ellie freezes. How did he find her here? His eyes locate hers immediately, cutting through the greasy air and morning noise. A slow smile touches his mouth when he says her name. It sounds soft and dangerous at the same time. She stammers his name and grips the dirty cleaning rag, like it could protect her from a man the whole city fears. He looks amused and tells her to call him Vince. Flustered, she leads him to a corner booth, because even in daylight he seems made for shadows. His stillness makes the diner feel smaller. When she pours his coffee, her hands shake badly enough that a drop splashes onto the saucer. Vince notices but says nothing. As she sets the mug down, his fingers brush hers on purpose. It is a tiny touch, barely anything, yet it steals more air from her than last night a stranger did. Vince notices her wrist before he looks at the menu. The bruises are darker now, purple against her skin. He asks how she is, and Ellie lies by instinct. It's nothing. People like her learn to make pain small so no one has to deal with it. Vince does not let her. His jaw tightens. It was not nothing. When she asks what happened to the men, he takes a slow sip of coffee and says they will not bother her again. Ellie understands enough to feel cold. She tries to change the subject by offering French toast. But as she turns away, he catches her hand and asks when she gets off work. 2, she whispers. She asks why, though she already knows she may not like the answer. He tells her he is taking her to dinner. It sounds polite, but there is steel underneath. Ellie says it is a bad idea. For the first time, Vince does not immediately answer. Something vulnerable flickers through his face, quick enough that she could pretend she imagined it. His thumb moves slowly over her skin, and her thoughts scatter. She wants to say his world is too dark and hers is barely holding together. Instead, she says she does not know him. Vince smiles. That's the point. Anthony will pick her up at 7, he adds, and she should wear something nice. Every excuse Ellie builds falls apart when she overhears him on the phone. His voice has dropped into a low, frightening growl, and he is telling someone to buy up her debt by tonight, no matter what it costs. When he sees her, he slips the phone away, as if he has not just reached into the most private wound of her life. Ellie refuses to let it pass. She confronts him right there and asks if he is trying to buy her. Vince looks surprised at first, then almost impressed. He does not deny it completely. He only says he cannot stand watching her drown in debts that were never truly hers. Her legs weaken, and she sinks into the seat across from him. "How do you know about my father's medical bills?" she asks. Vince says he makes it his business to know things, but the answer lands like a locked door. Ellie tells him he cannot buy her life. He calls it help, as if the word makes the invasion harmless. When she asks what he wants in return, real hurt passes across his face, and that almost makes her feel guilty. Almost her father spent years borrowing from one shark to pay another, until he died and left Ellie buried under the wreckage. She knows gifts from powerful men are rarely free. Then Vince says something that unsettles her more than any threat could. He knows she helps old Mrs. Finch in apartment 3B with groceries. Ellie's throat goes dry when she asks why he cares. He says he pays attention to what interests him. "And I interest you?" she asks, barely above a whisper. He looks at her as if the answer should be obvious. "More than you understand." Heat rises in her face. Around them, coworkers are whispering openly now, and Ellie stands because sitting there feels too exposed. Vince only nods and reminds her Anthony will arrive at 7. She wants to tell him no. Instead, she walks away with her pulse racing. The rest of her shift is a mess. Her name floats through the diner in every corner, always tangled with Vincent S. By the time she clocks out at 2, gossip has turned her into his mistress, his secret errand girl, his mysterious obsession. The truth is stranger and more frightening. She is nobody. And somehow the most dangerous man in the city is treating her like the center of a storm. Back in her apartment, surrounded by old textbooks and secondhand furniture. She hates herself for even considering dinner. But a small, reckless part of her is awake now. It is not the money. It is the way he looked at her as if she was not broken, not invisible, not disposable. That thought follows her into sleep. When she wakes, the clock says 5:30 in the evening, and panic hits hard. 90 minutes before his car arrives. One part of her knows Vincent Romano is dangerous. Another, quieter part wonders what her life will become if she keeps choosing the safest door, just because she is afraid of wanting more. In the shower, she lets hot water wash away the diner grease and some of the fear. By the time she steps out, she has made a plan. She will go to dinner once. She will thank him, refuse the debt payment, and leave before his world pulls her in by the roots. Ellie tries to dress for a world she has never belonged to. Standing before a closet that mostly says clearance rack, she pulls out a forest green dress from a failed job interview. Because corporate rejection is apparently the closest thing she owns to dinner elegance. She curls her hair, paints her lips, then steps into her only pair of heels, praying she does not twist an ankle before the night even begins. At 6:55, Anthony arrives, dressed like a funeral director, and tells her the boss is waiting. She gets into the Bentley expecting Vincent. The back seat is empty. Somehow that makes her feel even less in control. Vince has urgent business. Ellie tries not to imagine what urgent business means for a man like him. She watches her neighborhood fade behind her, replaced by shining towers that seem to mock every overdue notice she has ever received. They stop at Ariel, a restaurant so exclusive the entrance alone looks expensive. When Ellie asks if they are really eating there, Anthony gives the smallest smirk and says Vince owns it. Inside, crystal chandeliers glow above polished floors, and everyone greets her as if she matters, still in her cheap shoes. Ellie feels like a fraud wearing someone else's life. The private dining room sits high above the city, all glass walls, flickering candles, and quiet music. Vincent is waiting there, dressed in a crisp white shirt that makes him look less like a roomer and more like a man who could ruin her gently if she let him. The moment Ellie steps inside, his eyes stay on her. "You look stunning," he says, and she blushes before she can stop herself. Then she notices how alone they are. No crowd, no easy exit. Just the city glittering far below and a glass of red wine between them. It is beautiful. Almost painfully so. And that is what makes it dangerous. For a moment. Vincent seems almost harmless, while Ellie sips her wine and tries to breathe through the tension in her ribs. Then he says it. Her debt is gone. $70,000 of medical bills. Student loans. And credit card interest wiped out in a day. Her glass touches the table with a sharp little sound. Why, she asks. Suddenly feeling less like a guest, and more like something he has purchased. Vincent says he wanted her free from her father's ghost. The words are gentle. But Ellie hears the weight beneath them. When someone pays the price of your freedom. It is hard not to wonder what they think they own afterward. Vincent sees the fear on her face before she can hide it. He tells her he is not asking for her gratitude and not buying her obedience. Ellie almost believes him. And that is the problem. $70,000 is not a favor. It is a chain. Even if the chain is wrapped in velvet. She says she can never repay him. Vincent smiles faintly and says he does not want her money. He only wants her company. That should sound simple. It does not. Ellie leans back, studying him, trying to understand why a man with everything would look at her like she is the one thing missing. A waiter brings scallops arranged so carefully they look more like art than food. Vincent keeps the conversation steady, asking about the dreams Ellie buried just to survive. No one has asked her that in years. Slowly, she tells him about the mother who vanished, the father who fell apart, and the small bakery she once imagined opening. Vincent listens with a focus that makes her forget, for a few minutes, who he is supposed to be. When she asks what a man who has everything could possibly want, a shadow crosses his face. For 1 second. All that power looks less like a crown and more like a locked room. He says he wants success, security, and someone to share the silence with when the day is done. It sounds like a line, but his voice is too rough around the edges to be practiced. Ellie turns toward the window to hide the warmth in her face. She asks if she is just a cure for his loneliness. His answer comes quietly. Since the moment he saw her, he has not been able to think clearly. It should sound unhinged. Normal people do not erase a stranger's debt after knowing them for a day. But Ellie studies his face and cannot find a lie there. She finds intensity, which may be worse. Some things don't explain themselves. Ellie, he says as warm chocolate souffle arrives at the table. It is rich and comforting. And for the first time in years, she feels almost happy. After dinner, he leads her through a private elevator to a hidden rooftop garden. The doors open to soft lights, flowers, and the faint sweetness of night air above the city. It feels like a fairy tale built by a man who knows exactly how badly she needs to forget. Ellie knows she should stay careful. But perfect moments have a dangerous way of loosening your grip on common sense. They sit beside a reflecting pool under the stars. Vincent admits he comes here when the weight of the empire his father left behind becomes too much. Looking at his profile, Ellie sees something younger behind the control. Something lonely and bruised. Maybe that is why she has not run yet. They are both still carrying burdens their fathers left behind. When she tells him he is not as mysterious as he thinks, he laughs for real. The sound surprises them both. Then his phone lights up with a name Ellie catches before he turns it over. Victor Hale. The softness disappears from his face. The spell breaks. Vincent says it is late and he should take her home. But Ellie can feel the change in him. The ride back is quiet, full of everything he refuses to say. When he walks her up the stairs, his hand at her back sends another jolt through her. At her door, he asks when he can see her again. She mentions her 2 exhausting jobs, and his jaw tightens. He reminds her she does not need to work like that anymore. Her debt is gone. Ellie refuses to let relief become dependence. She says she will keep working. Something like respect flickers in his eyes. He compromises. Keep the diner job, he says, but leave the grocery store. The compromise sounds reasonable. But Ellie knows how quickly one compromise can become a life someone else designed. She asks if he spoke to Mike. Vincent admits it without guilt. Your safety is non-negotiable. She wants to resent him for saying it as if the world should obey. Instead, it warms something inside her, which scares her even more. When he leans in, she expects a kiss, but he only presses his lips to her forehead and says goodnight. Inside, with her back against the door, Ellie's heart hammers. Who is this man who has rewritten her life in 3 days? And why does his storm feel so much like shelter? On her worn couch, Ellie realizes she is standing at a dangerous crossroads, and the worst part is how badly she wants the change. Morning light brings no clarity. Men like Vincent do not fall for waitresses without a reason. There has to be a catch. Then she opens her laptop and checks her accounts. The medical bills are paid. The student loans are paid. The credit cards are paid in full. Overnight, he erased the weight that had bent her life out of shape. She should feel free. Instead, she feels the outline of a new debt forming, one no bank would ever be able to measure. Ellie can breathe for the first time in years. And that is exactly what makes it dangerous. No more double shifts just to keep interest from swallowing her alive. No more staring at the ceiling, wondering if she will ever finish her degree. But powerful men do not drop fortunes on strangers without leaving fingerprints. At the diner, the gossip is already out of control. Her quiet dinner has turned into private jets, secret affairs, and weekends in Paris. While Ellie ties her apron, Margot gives her a hard look. Men like Vincent don't just do dinner with girls like us, she warns. Ellie wants to argue, but the words stay with her. The morning drags by in coffee refills and greasy breakfast orders. But Ellie cannot shake the feeling that someone is watching her. Sure enough, a dark sedan sits across the street like it has grown roots there. At noon, her phone buzzes with a text from Vince telling her to look outside. There he stands beside his black Bentley, untouched by the June heat, as if the city itself makes room for him. Ellie steps out, painfully aware of her stained apron and cheap uniform. But when Vincent sees her, his expression softens. He says he thought she might be hungry, and opens the car door to reveal a picnic basket packed with impossible care. There are no grand speeches. No apology for appearing in the middle of her day. Just Vincent's quiet confidence. The kind that belongs to men used to moving the world with a phone call. They sit in the car. The street noise sealed outside. The basket is filled with gourmet sandwiches and pastries. Nothing like the cold scraps Ellie usually eats between shifts. She finally asks why he is doing this. He says he wanted to. When she asks about his morning, his jaw tightens for half a second. Business, he says. Ellie remembers the name on his phone. Victor Hale. Something in her tells her that name will matter. Vincent leans closer. Do I scare you? For once, Ellie tells the truth. He does, but not because she thinks he will hurt her. He scares her because of what he makes her feel, and because he keeps entire rooms inside himself locked. His eyes darken. He reaches up and gently tucks a loose strand of hair behind her ear. And what is that? He asks. Ellie says it feels like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing one small step could change the shape of her life. Vincent smiles faintly and asks if that would be so terrible. She does not know. Then he takes her hand and says he wanted her to remember what it feels like not to drown. Vincent says he wants to give her choices, a life that is more than survival. Ellie is not naive, so she asks the question that has been keeping her awake. Why her? Why would a man like him rescue a random cashier? For the first time, his answer does not come easily. He says that when he saw her fighting to stay upright after the world had taken too much, he recognized something. Not weakness. Defiance, a person carrying a fate she never asked for. When she asks about his father, Vincent goes cold. His father built the Romano Empire from nothing and expected his son to protect it, no matter what it cost. Ellie asks if he is protecting his father's legacy. Vincent's answer comes sharp and low. No, I'm correcting it. His father's methods were old, brutal, and dirty. he says. Men like Victor Hale still believe in that old way. And they hate him for trying to change it. Ellie wants to ask what clean means when men still disappear outside grocery stores. But her lunch break is over. When she says she has to go back inside, the car doors remain locked for 1 second too long. Then Vincent releases them and asks to see her tonight. Anthony will pick her up at 6 sharp. It is not quite an invitation. It is a command trying to dress itself as one. The next afternoon, Margot takes one look at Ellie and sighs. You re-in deep, she says. Ellie wants to deny it. But her thoughts keep drifting back to Vincent, no matter how hard she works. At 6, she rushes into the cramped bathroom and changes out of her uniform, slipping into a white sundress with blue flowers. Outside, Anthony waits with his usual unreadable expression. When she asks where they are going, his answer makes her stomach drop. Mr. Romano's private residence. Not a restaurant. Not a public place. His home, his world. The part people only whisper about. If they dare speak of it at all. They drive away from the city's neon glare. Concrete turns to quiet. Wealthy streets. Then to a winding private road lined with old oaks and guarded by heavy iron gates. Behind the tree stands a house of stone and glass, bordered by the sound of running water. It is beautiful in a way that makes Ellie feel both amazed and small. Anthony leads her to the massive front doors, which open before she can knock. Vincent is there without his jacket, sleeves rolled up, looking less like a mob boss and more like a man who has been waiting at home. His eyes warm when he sees her. Welcome, he says. The foyer opens into a soaring room where glass walls frame the darkening woods. Everything is quiet. Masculine luxury. Leather, steel, polished wood, and too much space. Ellie's voice sounds small when she speaks. Vincent watches her carefully, as if her reaction matters more than he wants to admit. He walks her through the estate, the kitchen, a dining table built for 20 empty chairs, a library full of books that do not look staged. When she asks if he lives there alone, he gives a small nod. Suddenly, the grand house does not feel grand at all. It feels like an empty palace built for a lonely king. Ellie says it must get quiet. And for 1 second, something raw slips through Vincent's controlled expression. He says he has gotten used to it. No girlfriend, no family close by, only a younger sister, Sophia, living in Europe and barely speaking to him. Before Ellie can ask more, he guides her onto the stone terrace. Together, they look out over a pool that seems to spill into the tree line. A young houseman named James brings drinks amber liquor for Vincent, something floral and light for Ellie. As the sun melts into gold behind the trees, Ellie feels her guard lowering, and she almost resents herself for it. Ellie sets down her glass and finally asks the question sitting between them. Why did he bring her here? Vincent looks at her, his dark eyes shaded by twilight. He says he wanted her to see the real him, away from the suits, the cars, and the fear attached to his name. He talks about responsibility, power, and a life he inherited before he was old enough to refuse it. He admits he had accepted being alone until she walked into it. Ellie tries to pull back, reminding him she is a waitress with a tiny apartment and debts he already erased. Vincent takes her hand and tells her she belongs wherever she chooses to stand. He tells her she is worth more than what she owes. And the certainty in his voice makes her chest tighten. When she asks what he could possibly want from her, his answer is too simple to be safe. Everything. He wants to protect her, wake beside her, and build a real life with her. Ellie protests that they barely know each other. Vincent says he knew enough the moment he watched her stand her ground while terrified. He speaks of desire, fascination, and a possessiveness he does not bother making pretty. It should send her running. Instead, some reckless part of her answers him. Still, she forces herself to whisper that she is no one's possession. Vincent agrees and calls her an equal. But the way his voice catches on the word, mine, sends a forbidden shiver through her. The tension breaks when Maria steps shout and quietly says, "Dinner is ready." Vincent releases Ellie's hand with visible reluctance, and leads her into a smaller dining room. Outside, a Japanese garden glows under soft lights. Candles flicker on the table, and music plays low enough to feel like a secret. Ellie murmurs that it is beautiful. Vincent looks at her and admits he wanted tonight to feel different. Not a performance. Not a trap. Just an honest door opened by a man who does not open many. Over dinner. They keep circling the truth. Vincent tries to sound like a normal businessman, as if his life has never required anything darker than negotiation. Ellie, somehow, starts laying her own heart open across the table. She tells him about her childhood bakery dreams and her father's gambling addiction, the slow disaster that swallowed their lives. Still, she defends him. He was not evil, she says, only weak. Vincent's face shifts. Weakness can ruin lives as fast as cruelty, he says, when Ellie asks if that is what happened with his father. The warmth leaves the room. Some questions are gentle only until they touch the wound. His jaw tightens before he tells her the truth. His father was murdered when Vincent was 22. Ellie does not pull away. She reaches across the table and touches his hand, because her heart moves faster than her fear. Vincent admits he built walls around himself after his mother died of cancer and his father turned to ice. For a moment, the dangerous man across from her looks like the boy he used to be grieving, cornered and forced to become hard before he was ready. He says that with her. He wants to tear those walls down. It is beautiful, but it is frightening too. Open doors can let love in, but they also let pain reach deeper. Later, on the balcony above the dark pool, Vincent asks her to stay. He says it is not about sex, unless she wants that. He just wants to wake up and know she is there. Ellie searches for an easy excuse. She does not have clothes. Vincent says Anthony can collect her things. She says she has work. He says she can leave before dawn. Every boundary she places between them, he calmly refuses to treat as impossible. That should anger her. Instead, it leaves her facing the truth. The thing frightening her most is not that Vincent wants her to stay. It is that leaving suddenly feels harder. Vincent stands there as if measuring how much truth he can reveal without driving her away. He tells her she is the first person he has ever brought to the mansion. It has always been his fortress, but he wants it to become a home. And she is the only person he can imagine inside it. It is too fast, too reckless, almost absurd. Yet it reaches the part of Ellie that has always wanted to belong somewhere without having to earn the right to stay. When he takes her face in his hands and asks her to admit she feels it too, she cannot lie. She is terrified. But yes, she feels it. He promises he will only hold her. She nods. The moment she agrees, Vincent smiles, and every warning sign she has ignored feels, for one dangerous second, worth it. He rests his forehead against hers and whispers a thank you so soft it nearly breaks her. Then he leads her through quiet hallways to a massive bedroom with windows facing the black woods. He gives her one of his oversized t-shirts to sleep in and steps away to let her change. Alone in the marble bathroom, Ellie stares at herself and realizes how unbelievable all of this is. She also realizes how tired she is of fighting every battle alone. Letting someone take care of her might be the hardest thing she has ever done. The shower is warm, but Ellie's mind will not slow down. She brushes her teeth, looks in the mirror, and barely recognizes the flushed girl staring back. She is spending the night in Vincent Romano's house, wearing his shirt, standing inside a life so far from hers it might as well be another country. And yet, for the first time in a long time, she feels strangely calm. Downstairs, Vincent waits in the library beside a crackling fire, looking almost relaxed. Ellie knows she is stepping out of the small, safe version of her life. She also knows that safe has never really saved her. When she walks into the library, Vincent stares before he can stop himself. Her damp hair, bare legs, and the oversized shirt are enough to crack his careful control. He hands her a glass of wine and tells her she is beautiful. This time, Ellie is bold enough to say he is beautiful too. and the honesty makes him smile. They sit together on the leather couch in the warm firelight. On impulse, she asks him for a secret. He admits he paints abstract pieces to keep himself sane. When he asks for one of hers, she confesses that she talks to her plants. It is silly, but their laughter makes the room feel real. Ellie admits she sometimes asks her houseplants for advice, especially when her life feels too heavy for one person to carry. Vincent laughs too, low and genuine, and the last bit of awkwardness slips away. He reaches out slowly, tucking a loose curl behind her ear, his thumb tracing the line of her jaw. His voice drops when he says he wants to kiss her badly, even though he promised to let her sleep. Ellie sets down her glass and moves closer. "I want more," she whispers. Vincent goes still, in the silence that follows. They both understand that rules are easy to make when desire is far away, and much harder to keep when it is breathing beside you. Vincent warns her that if he starts, he may not be able to stop wanting more. Ellie looks him in the eye and says she trusts him. It makes no sense. Not after everything she knows and everything she should fear. But she means it. He searches her face and finds no panic there. Then he kisses her. At first it is gentle, almost careful. The moment she sighs against his mouth, his control starts to fracture. He pulls her against him, and the kiss turns hungry. Desperate, full of all the words neither of them knows how to say. When he groans her name, Ellie is not afraid. She is tired of living half alive, Vincent says, his voice rough. Ellie does not hesitate. She tells him she wants him, and admits she has wanted him since the night he walked into the grocery store. The last of her doubt falls away, not because the danger is gone, but because pretending has become impossible. He carries her upstairs, touching her with a mix of reverence and possession, whispering that she belongs with him now. Later, tangled in the sheets with her head on his chest, he asks her to stay. He is offering her a world dark, beautiful, violent, and unknown. Ellie realizes home might not be a place. It might be a person who terrifies you and still feels like shelter. Even wrapped in the warmth of the night, Ellie tries to hold on to her old life. She talks about her apartment, her job, her classes, anything that proves she still has ground beneath her feet. Vincent traces her shoulder and tells her she can keep all of it or leave it behind. Then he asks her to make him her home. It is a tempting offer. Complete safety and impossible luxury wrapped around a man who could destroy her if he ever chose to. Ellie whispers that she needs time to think. Vincent only kisses her hair and says he will wait, when she falls asleep in his arms. She knows she has crossed a line she cannot uncross. When Ellie wakes in expensive silk sheets, she is disoriented for a moment. Then the night comes back to her. She turns and finds Vincent already awake, watching her with messy hair and rough stubble. Looking younger and softer than the feared men people whisper about, he asks, very quietly, if she has any regrets. Ellie searches herself for panic, shame, anything that feels like warning. She finds none. Looking into his eyes, she tells him no. The breath he releases carries so much relief that the rest of her doubt softens in the morning light. Vincent leans in, his hands gentle in a way that still surprises her. He kisses her forehead, then her mouth, and complains about meetings he wishes he could cancel. Then he asks her to stay. Not only for the day, but in his life. The word hangs between them. Ellie sees the choice clearly. Her small, familiar world or his dangerous, powerful one. She tries to make light of it, saying her plants need water. Vincent sees the fear beneath the joke and offers to have Anthony take her home. When she agrees to meet him for lunch, quiet relief moves across his face. It is strange. Ellie thinks, how hard it can be to believe you are truly wanted. The moment the bedroom door closes behind him, Ellie dropped back onto the ridiculous silk sheets. A week ago, she was wearing a greasy diner apron and counting coins. Now she has spent the night with Vincent Romano, the most feared man in the city. It is enough to make her dizzy. Her skin is still warm, and part of her is afraid she is dreaming. But when she showers and puts her $10 sundress back on, the cheap cotton looks painfully out of place against the marble floors. Downstairs, Vincent sits with espresso, every inch a man of power. He hides his phone when she enters, but his eyes move over her with unmistakable protectiveness. Ellie starts to protest when breakfast appears, but Vincent pulls out her chair at the marble island and tells her to eat before she starts arguing with him. Maria, the housekeeper, quietly says Vincent never eats enough and she hopes Ellie will change that. The sudden acceptance feels lovely and frightening at once. For a little while, they sit inside the warm illusion of an ordinary morning. Then Vincent's phone buzzes. His face tightens. He apologizes, kisses Elias' temple, and steps toward his office. As he walks away, his voice hardens into the cold, commanding tone of a man who rules a world Ellie has only begun to see. Ellie catches pieces of the call. Shipments, customs trouble, an old ledger, and Victor Hale demanding a meeting. The name lands like a stone because she has heard it before. Margot once mentioned a man named Hale who bought ruined businesses and left broken families behind. Sitting alone in the kitchen, Ellie feels the distance between her life and Vincent's opening again. Soon Anthony appears with his usual blank professionalism and offers to take her home. The ride back feels like waking from a dream. The black Bentley moves through her crumbling neighborhood like something from another world, drawing curious looks from windows and sidewalks. Anthony tells her he will return at noon, which sounds less like an offer and more like an order delivered politely. Inside her small apartment, Ellie feels a sharp ache. The place seems shabbier than before. The water stain on the ceiling looks bigger. The furniture looks older. Her sanctuary suddenly feels poor, and she hates that feeling. She refuses to let Vincent's wealth steal her pride. Every second-hand chair, every chipped mug, every worn blanket was paid for with her own work. She waters her struggling fern and whispers to it, asking whether wanting him means losing herself. Why would a man who commands entire rooms choose her? Ellie Sanders, a diner waitress, daughter of a ruined gambler and a mother who disappeared without looking back. Then her phone lights up with Vincent's message. A simple invitation to lunch that somehow feels like a promise. She replies with a trembling heart, knowing she is falling into something beautiful and dangerous. At noon, Anthony is waiting. He notices the small overnight bag in her hand, says nothing, and opens the door. Back at the mansion, Vincent stands on the sunlit terrace without his jacket, waiting as if he has been counting the minutes until she returned. And Vincent looks up from his laptop. The shadows on his face disappear almost instantly. He rises, his hands settling at her waist with a tenderness that feels almost desperate. "You came back," he whispers. For 1 second, all his power falls away, and Ellie sees the fear of being left behind. She tells him he has her for one night, trying to keep one last wall around her heart. He takes her bag as if it matters more than gold, and gestures toward the lunch he prepared. The pool gleams in the sun. The estate looks perfect, but Ellie can barely look away from him. They eat fresh salads and warm bread, talking about ordinary things, her online classes, books they both like, places they might visit someday. For a little while, the violent shadow of Vincent's world fades, replaced by the strange comfort of normal life. After lunch, he pulls her onto a lounge chair and holds her against his chest. "This is nice," he murmurs into her hair. Ellie smiles and says it must be different from his usual afternoons. He laughs softly and agrees it is better. The sun warms them, and the steady beat of his heart almost lulls her to sleep. Then he asks about the bakery, and the dream she buried starts breathing again. Ellie describes it before she can stop herself. A cozy storefront full of fresh pastry, warm light, and the kind of smell that makes strangers feel welcome. When Vincent asks what she would call it, she hesitates. "Sweetness and light," she says at last. It was what her mother used to call her before she left. Vincent's arms tighten. Just slightly. Ellie notices. What? She asks. He says nothing. But the pause is too long. She pulls away and says a space in the city would be too expensive anyway. Vincent offers to fund it. Ellie sits up and looks him straight in the eye. I can take any more from you. Vincent says a gift given freely is not a debt. But Ellie is not ready to believe that. She admits she is afraid she will never know whether her success is hers, or just Vincent Romano clearing every obstacle from her path. His smile catches her off guard, because it is full of admiration, not frustration. Your independence is beautiful, he tells her. But accepting help does not make the climb less yours. The words reach her, so she kisses him and leaves the offer for another day. They spend the afternoon walking through gardens and orchards full of sunlight. Then evening comes, and one phone call turns Vincent's face cold. He steps away, speaking in low, a fast Italian that sounds more like a warning than a conversation. When he returns, the gentleman from the afternoon is gone. In his place is controlled tension, sharp and dark. Victor Hale wants a sit-down, and Vincent has to leave. Ellie says she understands, though disappointment sits heavy in her chest. Vincent cups her face and promises he will only be gone a few hours. Be careful, she whispers before she can stop herself. Surprise flashes across his face. Then he kisses her with desperate intensity. I'll come back to you, he says, after his car disappears down the drive. The mansion feels enormous and hollow. Ellie finds an entire shelf of baking books. Vincent gathered them for her. The gesture is beautiful, but it also unsettles her. He is already making space for her in his future, moving faster than she knows how to handle. She curls up on a leather sofa with a book on French pastry and tries to focus on recipes. But one page stops her cold. A pressed blue flower slips from between the pages. On the inside cover, someone wrote one sentence in faded ink. For Celia, who made this house smell like home. Celia was Ellie's mother's name. Suddenly, the room feels less like a sanctuary and more like a secret, before Ellie can make sense of it. Exhaustion drags her under. She wakes in the dark to strong, gentle arms lifting her from the sofa. Vincent carries her up the grand staircase as if she weighs nothing. Ellie breathes in his familiar cologne. But beneath it she catches something sharper copper. Smoke and the night air. You re back, she murmurs. I told you I would be, he says, laying her down with almost painful tenderness. After he showers, he steps out with damp skin and shadows across his body. In the faint light, Ellie notices the fresh bruise near his ribs. Victor Hale is no longer just a name. Vincent hesitates when she asks what happened. A disagreement with an old associate, he says quietly as he climbs into bed beside her. It's resolved for tonight. Ellie hears the lie inside the careful wording. But another question burns hotter. She almost asks about the cookbook, about her mother's name hidden in his library. Instead, she swallows it. She is too tired, too tangled up in him, to open a door that might change everything. Sometimes comfort can look enough like safety that we stop asking questions. Morning comes, and Vincent sits at the edge of the bed in a perfect suit, holding fresh coffee as if he did not spend the night washing violence off his skin. The romantic fog thins, and what remains smells faintly of gunpowder and copper. Ellie sets down her coffee and finally asks what happened. Vincent gives her the look of a man who has carried too much for too long. He admits his world is dirty. He says he is trying to build something cleaner on top of his father's blood-soaked legacy. Ellie wants to believe him, but she knows rot does not disappear because someone builds marble over it. Then she asks about the name Celia in the cookbook. Vincent goes still, for the first time since she met him. He looks truly unprepared. Vincent begins giving her pieces of the truth. Docks, bribes, extortion. Fragile truces with men who would kill him if they smelled weakness. Then more quietly, he tells her Celia Sanders once worked in the Romano house when he was a child. She baked in that very kitchen. Ellie's breath catches. Her mother had not vanished into nowhere after all. She had passed through Vincent's world. When Ellie asks why he never told her, Vincent says he did not know at first. Later he was afraid the truth would make her think he came for her because of the past. Not because of her. Ellie stands frozen, realizing the story is no longer as simple as rescue and romance. Vincent admits Victor Hale remembers Celia too, and that is why the name scares him. His father kept ledgers filled with names, payments, and favors. One disappeared the same week Celia left the estate. Ellie feels the floor tilt beneath her. Her mother's disappearance. Vincent's sudden interest. Hayless calls. The men watching her, everything begins to connect in ways she does not like. Vincent promises to keep her safe. But the promise sounds too much like a golden cage. When she asks if Hale could use her to reach those old secrets, his eyes go cold. He says anyone who touches her will be destroyed. The words frighten her because she believes him. Vincent kisses her softly and tells her he will do whatever it takes to be worthy of her light. Then he says Anthony will stay close, as if assigning her a guard is an ordinary parting gift, just before he leaves. He gives her the one thing she is least prepared for. He tells her he is in love with her. Then he walks out, leaving Ellie alone with two truths pressing against her chest. Vincent loves her. Vincent also kept something from her. She tries to reason her way through the danger, through her mother's name, through Victor Hale's shadow. But the heart is stubborn. It does not care how strong the argument against it sounds. Ellie wanders through the giant mansion, trying to imagine her mother in these rooms years ago. Celia kneading dough in the kitchen. Celia laughing under these same lights. Celia leaving without ever coming back for her daughter. The thought cuts deeper than Ellie expects. When Vincent comes home looking drained, they cling to each other and eat a quiet dinner. They talk about safe things. Soft, ordinary things people use when the truth is waiting just outside the door. For a few hours, they almost succeed. But peace built on secrets has a way of trembling beneath your feet. After dinner, he takes her into his study. A room that feels like generations of dangerous men have made decisions over whiskey and cigars. He pulls out a velvet box, and Ellie's breath catches because, for one wild second, she thinks he is about to propose. But inside is a sleek, high-tech house key. Vincent tells her it is for when she is ready to stay. It is generous, intimate, terrifying. He gives her a key to prove she is free to come and go. Yet part of her wonders if a key can also teach a person to lock herself inside a life she cannot leave. Moonlight falls across his skin while Ellie traces the scars on his body. When she touches the line across his ribs, he tells her it happened when he was 24 and had just taken over the family business. When she touches his shoulder, he mentions a rival who thought he would be weak after his father died. Victor Hale. Ellie guesses. Vincent does not deny it. Ellie asks if her mother knew the old Vincent, the boy before the empire. He closes his eyes and says he remembers Celia's cakes more than her face. That small answer hurts more than a grand confession. Vincent asks if his world scares her. Ellie tells him she is not afraid of him. She is afraid of loving someone who might always be half hidden from her. He swears he will tell her the truth, even the ugly parts. But she can hear how hard that promise is for him. Loving someone like this gives them a terrible power over you. Not because they might hurt you on purpose, but because every secret becomes a blade you may not see until it is already under your skin. Later, when he falls asleep, Ellie whispers that she loves him into the darkness. In the morning, she wakes alone with a note beside her. Ellie stands in a house that still feels more like a museum than a home. She puts on her normal cheap clothes and looks in the mirror, feeling the gap between her simple life and this cold, luxurious fortress. Staying here could mean losing herself completely. Leaving could mean walking away from the first person who ever saw her clearly. While she drinks coffee, Maria enters looking shaken. A woman is at the gate. Margot, the diner cook who warned Ellie to run. Ellie's stomach drops. Every step toward the massive front doors feels like a warning that the outside world has finally come for her. The doors open. and there is Margot in her work apron, painfully out of place against the marble floors. Ellie pulls her into a side room away from the guards, and the real world crashes in hard. Margot tells her 3 cold, dangerous men came into the diner the night before asking about Ellie. Not casual questions, specific ones. Her family, her mother, whether Ellie had ever heard the name Celia spoken in the Romano house. One of them left a name with Margot. Victor Hale. Just like that, the safety of the mansion feels thin and breakable. Vincent's world has not only found Ellie's name, it has found her bloodline. Margot grabs Ellie's hands and begs her to pack. Go back to her apartment. Take her 2 jobs. And choose the boring life that at least lets her wake up alive. For 1 second. Ellie wants exactly that. She wants a world where her biggest problem is rent, not dead men as ledgers and Mafia enemies asking about her mother. Then she thinks of Vincent's smile, his fear when she almost leaves. The way he looks at her as if she is the one honest thing left in his life. The thought of walking away from him hurts more than the danger. That is how far gone she is. Ellie whispers that she cannot leave. Not without answers. Margot's face falls. She presses a crumpled piece of paper with her phone number into Ellie's hand and tells her love is not worth dying for if it costs her the truth. For 2 long hours, Ellie sits alone in the mansion, holding that paper like a lifeline and staring at the cookbook with her mother's name inside it. She knows she has to face Vincent and ask what loving him will truly cost. When the doors finally open and he walks in, his smile disappears the second he sees her face. Ellie looks up, heart pounding. We need to talk. Ellie tells him everything, and Vincent's face changes so fast it frightens her. He pulls out his phone and starts giving orders in rapid Italian. Ellie does not understand the words, but she understands the weight behind them. They sound like sentences being handed down. Then she says Victor Hale's name, and the room changes. Vincent lowers the phone. He admits Hale once worked beside his father, and his father once suspected Celia of stealing a ledger before she disappeared. Ellie feels the blood drain from her face. Her mother may not have abandoned her for no reason. She may have been running from the Romano family itself. Ellie asks if Vincent knew before he paid her debts, before he brought her here, before he said he loved her. He takes her face in his hands, but this time she does not lean into him. He swears he did not know when he first saw her. Later, when he learned enough to suspect a connection, he should have told her. That is the truth he cannot soften. Ellie trembles with anger and heartbreak. Vincent says he loves her, and somehow that makes it worse. Because love does not erase the fact that he kept her in the dark. I'm falling in love with you too, she whispers. But I want to be another secret in this house. The terrifying Mafia Don disappears, and for one stunning moment, Vincent is only a man afraid of losing the woman he loves. He promises to find the truth about Celia, even if it stains his father's name beyond repair and hands Hale a weapon against him. Ellie believes him because she sees what it costs him to say it. 6 months later, an emerald-cut diamond ring catches the morning light on her finger. It is elegant and beautiful, but it carries the weight of everything they survived together. Debts, secrets, and the painful work of choosing love without closing their eyes. Their story was never simple. Maybe that is why it feels real. The ring is expensive but understated, much like the man who gave it to her. Ellie stands in a kitchen too large to ever feel completely hers, trying to steady her nerves. Today is the grand opening of her bakery. Sweetness and light. Vincent comes in fresh from a workout and rests a hand on her lower back like an anchor. She jokes about being nervous, but she still cannot quite believe this is her life. 6 months ago, she was a broke waitress. Now she is engaged to Vincent Romano. Opening a bakery she fought to build on her own terms, with money accounted for, contracts in her name, and no more gifts disguised as fate. Of course, Ellie knows Vincent helped more than he admits. The perfect storefront with wide windows did not simply appear. Permits that should have taken months moved in days. Somewhere, Invisible doors opened because of his name. Ellie sees it, but she no longer lets pride become another prison. They have built hard boundaries between his darkness and her light, and both of them try to honor them. As Vincent pours coffee, he asks when Maria is coming to finalize the engagement party guest list. He wants the world to see them together, proud and unafraid. Ellie is still learning how much visibility can cost for Vincent. Bringing Ellie into the open is no small thing. At first, he kept her hidden from his business associates, protected like a secret no one was allowed to touch. Over time, things changed. The threats quieted after Vincent uncovered part of Celia's old ledger and used it to cut off Victor Hale's money without firing a shot. But Hale did not disappear. Men like him did not survive by forgiving humiliation. Vincent began introducing Ellie to his world slowly. Private dinners, charity galas, rooms where the Romano name could shift the air. Through it all, his eyes never strayed far from her. 3 months earlier, on a quiet terrace under the stars, Vincent proposed without spectacle. Just a promise, and the truth beside it. Ellie said yes because by then her love was no longer blind. She knew his darkness. She knew his tenderness. She knew he was still learning how to tell the truth before fear turned it into a secret. Now the clock is ticking, and she has a bakery staff to prepare for opening day. Vincent promises to come by at noon with lunch for everyone. It is a small step across the boundaries they drew together. He would never walk into her shop without warning, because his shadow could swallow the bright world she is building. Today he only wants to support her. Ellie chose her bakery crew carefully. A pastry chef to balance her self-taught instincts, 2 baristas, and a front manager who can keep the chaos moving. She grabs her chef coat, kisses Vincent goodbye, and steps outside. Anthony is waiting by the car, silent and steady as ever. Over the past 6 months, Ellie has learned he is more than a driver. He is a shadow, a keeper of secrets, and Vincent's quiet promise that she will not be left unprotected. She greets him and asks for Baker Street. To her surprise, the hard face guard allows the faintest smile. Ellie is sure Vincent has told Anthony how proud she is of doing this, mostly on her own, refusing to let Romano millions build the dream for her. As the car moves through the city, she thinks about the girl she was 6 months ago, broke, frightened, surviving one shift at a time. Now she carries herself differently, not because of Vincent's power, but because she has begun to recognize her own. When the car stops, the bakery stands in front of her like a promise kept. Warm walls, elegant gold lettering, and her team waiting inside. Among them is Cora, a brilliant pastry chef who left toxic kitchens behind to recover her love for the work. The rest of the team brings its own energy. Marcel and Jenna are eager culinary students, bright-eyed and ambitious, while Renata, a retired teacher, keeps everyone grounded with calm, motherly patience. At noon, Vincent arrives with lunch. Ellie watches the city's most feared man charm her staff with surprising ease, his dangerous edge tucked neatly away. In a quiet corner, he tells her she has built something truly hers. When she tries to thank him, he stops her. Her own stubborn drive would have gotten her here, he says. Hearing that from him means more than any check he could have written. After one last hug, Vincent returns to his shadowed business, and Ellie gets back to work. The afternoon disappears in a blur of dusting shelves, writing chalkboard menus, checking ovens, and rehearsing the opening routine. By 6, she locks the door, exhausted but glowing. Her dream is real. Then she notices something slipped beneath the back entrance, a small envelope with no name. Inside is a photograph of her mother standing in front of the Romano kitchen 20 years earlier. On the back, one sentence is written in blue ink. Bring the recipe box, or sweetness and light burns before sunrise. Ellie's joy turns cold. Before Ellie can call Vincent, the lights in the bakery flicker out. The front bell rings once, though the door is locked. Through the glass, she sees a silver-haired man in a dark coat standing beneath the street lamp. smiling as if he has been invited. Victor Hale. He does not need to raise his voice for her to hear him. He tells her Celia was clever, but she raised a daughter who still believes locked doors matter. Then he places one hand against the glass and says Vincent will trade anything for her, even the pieces of the ledger that can ruin him. Ellie backs away, clutching the photograph, finally staring at the danger face to face. Anthony appears from the alley before Hale can move closer, and suddenly guns are drawn on both sides of the street. Ellie's bakery, her clean, bright dream, becomes the center of a war she never asked for. Hale smiles at Anthony and says he is not there to spill blood. Not yet. He only wanted Ellie to understand that bakeries burn as easily as empires. Then he leaves, calm and untouched, disappear into a black car before Vincent's men can stop him. By the time Vincent arrives, Ellie is still standing behind the counter, with flour on her sleeve and fear in her throat. He reaches for her, but she holds up the photograph first. Vincent goes pale when he reads the message. That night in his study, he opens the hidden safe and shows Ellie what he has been building in secret. Legal papers, bank documents, fake passports, and an envelope marked with her full name. He calls it insurance. If his world burns down, or if she ever decides she cannot stay, she can run. He wants to protect her, but protection becomes a cage if there is no door. Ellie looks at the escape plan, then opens the old recipe box she has kept since childhood. Beneath a false wooden bottom, Celia left a key, a list of names, and one final note for her daughter. The note says Celia did not run because she stopped loving Ellie. She ran because Victor Hale would have used her child to force her silence. Ellie reads the words with shaking hands, then looks at Vincent and sees the choice before them. He wants to hide her, move her bury Hale the old way. But Ellie refuses. She says she is done surviving inside other people's decisions. She will not trade the evidence, and she will not let Hale turn her bakery into a cage. They call Sophia. They call the one prosecutor Vincent's father could never buy. Then Ellie makes a plan that terrifies them all. She will meet Hale, wearing a wire, and make him confess. Vincent says no before she even finishes. Ellie says yes with a steadiness that surprises them both. She reminds him that Hale wants a frightened girl who can be used against him. He will not expect a woman who has already copied every page, scheduled every file to release, and hidden the original where only Sophia knows to look. Vincent stares at her as if he is seeing her clearly for the first time. Not as someone to save, someone to stand beside. That night, Ellie lies awake in his arms while he holds her too tightly. The cashier who once trembled in a grocery store is gone. Tomorrow she will walk into danger by choice. Near midnight, Ellie stands inside the dark bakery with the recipe box on the counter and a tiny recorder hidden beneath the collar of her dress. Vincent is across the street, forced to wait because this time, brute force will ruin everything. Anthony watches the back exit. Sophia waits with the prosecutor 2 blocks away, holding the copied ledger in a sealed envelope. The front bell rings. Victor Hale enters alone, elegant and smiling, as if he has come to buy a cake. He compliments the warm sugar in the air, then looks at Ellie and says Celia had the same foolish courage. Ellie keeps her hands still and asks what he did to her mother. Hale's smile thins. He says Celia made one mistake. She believed truth could protect the innocent. He opens the recipe box and finds only blank cards. For the first time, his calm slips. Ellie tells him the ledger is already copied, already waiting. And if anything happens to her, it goes everywhere by morning. Hale's eyes turn cold. He steps closer and says Vincent will tear the city apart before letting anyone touch her. Ellie's voice does not shake when she answers. That is why she came without him. She wants Hale on record, not dead in an alley where his secrets can die with him. Outside, Vincent hears every word through the wire and has to force himself not to move. Hale laughs softly and calls her Celia's daughter after all. Then the back door opens, and 2 of his men drag Sophia inside. Her wrists bound but her chin lifted in pure Romano pride. Ellie's stomach drops, but she does not break. Hale says Sophia kept the missing pages for years, and now both women can hand him what he wants. Sophia looks at Ellie and gives one tiny shake of her head. In that second, Ellie understands. The real evidence is not in the envelope. Sophia brought a decoy because she knew Hale would try something. Ellie slowly pushes the recipe box toward him, buying time while the recorder catches every threat. Hale turns to Sophia and tells her she should have learned obedience from her father. Sophia's mask cracks, and years of pain spill through. She says their father destroyed people and called it strength. But Celia was braver than all of them. Celia copied proof of payments, murders, judges, police, and every business Hale used to wash the family's sins clean. She hid the master key in Ellie's childhood recipe box because no one dangerous ever thought to look inside something made for love. Hale raises his hand, furious, and that is when Ellie steps between him and Sophia. For the first time in her life, she does not wait for someone else to protect her. Ellie tells Hale he has already lost. The prosecutor has the files. The press has a delayed copy. Vincent has ordered his men to stand down unless Hale touches one more person in the room. Hale stares at her, then at the street outside, where red and blue lights begin to flash silently through the bakery windows. His face twists, not with fear, but with disbelief that a waitress and a broken family have cornered him without firing a single shot. He lunges for the recipe box, but Ellie knocks it from the counter. The false bottom breaks open, spilling blank cards across the floor. The real key is hanging around her neck, hidden inside the locket her mother left behind. The door bursts open. Vincent enters with his men, but he does not raise a weapon. He goes straight to Ellie and Sophia, cutting Sophia free while the prosecutor's officers move in behind him. Hale shouts that Vincent is betraying his own blood. Vincent looks at Ellie, then at the ruined recipe box on the floor, and says blood is not an excuse to keep poisoning the future. Hale is arrested before dawn, not by Vincent's bullets, but by the ghosts he spent years trying to silence. Later, when the bakery lights come back on, Vincent holds Ellie with shaking hands. Ellie tells him this is what family should do: protect each other without burying the truth. Months later, Vincent asks if she remembers what day it is. 18 months since a dangerous man walked into a grocery store and saw a terrified cashier. Ellie gently corrects him. It was the night they found each other. Vincent smiles, but his eyes carry the weight of everything they had to survive. Hale, Celia's secret, Sophia's pain, and the moment Ellie chose to save herself instead of waiting to be saved. He wonders what his life would have become if he had never walked into that store, never seen her face, never reached for something softer than power. Ellie has no doubt. Some souls cross paths even when the road is ugly, even when the truth arrives late. His world remains dangerous, but it no longer owns him completely. And yet, after every secret, every wound, and every choice that could have broken them, they keep choosing each other. Together they have built a fragile sanctuary neither of them expected to find. A baker and a mafia kingpin should never have made sense. But a night that could have ended in tragedy became the beginning of a fierce, complicated love. Ellie would not erase their scars, because every one of them led here. Tomorrow she will return to flour, ovens, and warm sugar. Vincent will keep dragging his business out of the shadows, one dangerous truth at a time. And at the end of the day, they will find each other again, still building shelter in the middle of the storm.